Hello everyone, so I've just finished watching episode 6 of Celebrity Traitors 2025. So, let's recap. At the beginning of the episode, it was either David or Mark who were going to be saved and the other one was going to be banished from the round table. The reason this happened is because there was a draw in the votes and the people on the table weren't able to decide whether they wanted to get rid of David or Mark. It was 4-4, so Claudia decided to bring out 2 boxes. One had a shield and one didn't. Whoever got the shield stayed, whoever didn't. Simple. So it turned out that David was able to get the shield from his box. Mark was banished. He obviously explained that he was a faithful. And because Alan put the idea forward that Mark was a traitor, Alan said he felt really bad. Kate said, don't feel bad, you didn't do anything wrong. Everyone just has their wrong judgment every so often. And David explained to Celia and Lucy that it was basically really disastrous and they're basically losing the game. Joe M said that he was looking... Joe M was talking to Joe W and Kat, saying that he's definitely looking at Jonathan Ross now. And Lucy was speaking to Kat, and they both kind of said either David or Jonathan are kind of their next options. Alan said that Mark obviously hates him now. Look at the speech that, Mark did as he left. And I think this is why he was talking to the other traitors, and they were basically trying to discuss who they think they should take out next. Kat said potentially Joe W, but, Joe W is one of the ones who doesn't think it's Jonathan Ross. But Jonathan said he's starting to slowly get a little bit more scared of Kate. The fact that, she maybe doesn't have any opinions at the moment or isn't as active or vocal as some of the other contestants. But, he's scared that over time she's going to start getting some thoughts or, be swayed. And her vote could be the differing vote between whether he stays or whether he goes. Alan asked whether they should just do the deed and get rid of Stephen. And in the end, it was obviously Kate, Joe W or Stephen. David explained when they were back at the house that they're doing so badly and they're doing the same things. And he also didn't think that Mark was a traitor. Joe M said that after the whole Ruth situation, he thinks that Jonathan Ross has his whole double bluff. But for some reason, David wanted to turn everybody to vote for Joe. And then Alan said he has no faith in the faithfuls, and they're just bursting at the seams, basically. And then Celia explained that she woke up and had a dream about Alan. No. Yeah, she had a dream about Alan, I think. And then over here, basically Celia explained that Alan is a lot cleverer than he leads on. So he basically said, what, are you calling me stupid? And she went, no, but you obviously just, you come across in a certain way, but you're a lot smarter. Joe W said if he had the chance, Joe M said that if he had to choose between Joe W or Stephen for who he would bring back the other Joe, just because I guess they had their bond. And then Alan questioned and giggled, saying would they actually kill Stephen? And then it turned out that Joe W didn't come back, so Joe M obviously wasn't very happy, and now I could just recall Joe as Joe. So Joe W is the comedian guy, Joe M is the boxer, the rugby player. So yeah, we're just going to call Joe M just Joe now. Joe, the rugby player. So David whispered to whoever he was talking to, saying that Stephen's definitely a traitor and he's acting, with Celia kind of backing him up again, saying Stephen's not a traitor. So I think at this point, it's not that Celia is a traitor. I think just because she knows and has worked with him and she knows he's a genuine guy, whether or not you're friends with someone in the game or not, you know that if you've got that connection with someone, you know that they're not a traitor. So she just said, no, I don't think he's a traitor. So you're all, going up the wrong tree with that one. Joe M basically said that, although I'm not happy with the decision of Joe W leaving, it doesn't mean I can't be grumpy. That's just it. Claudia came in, said her goodbyes to Joe W, and she, in terms for the next mission clue, said, who likes board games, or who here likes board games? So Stephen added that, they could be playing a game where they're active chess pieces, saying, oh, he's already a knight. And then Alan said, yeah, instead of an old queen. And Stephen was having a conversation with David, Kate and Lucy, saying that David is a bit of an unsettled case, so kind of questioning that to his face. David said he was suspicious of Kate, and David thinks that both Kate and Stephen are working together as a team, which they are, but as faithfuls, not as he thinks as traitors. Kate explained it's difficult for her to have a killer instinct, especially being on TV where she's never in a situation where she can judge people. She just has to kind of sit and listen. Lucy was talking to Jonathan, saying it could be Stephen or David, and Nick was talking to Kat, Jonathan, Alan, saying that, you know, there's 10 of them left. He, you know, thinks potentially that Kat is a traitor. He's not too sure on Jonathan. He hasn't really thought about Alan. But the fact that Nick was literally sitting there with the 3 traitors talking about the traitors, you know, it gives all the faithfuls more time to talk to each other. But also, you know, could they then just take him out next? Or would they, you know, end up recruiting him because he's kind of now getting close to them all? He thinks a lot. So, yeah, that was part of the first part of episode 6. And then we had Kat ask Celia who she was suspicious of. So the 2 girls were just sitting in the kitchen, and I think Kat was really relaxed and really, you know, just kind of not downplaying things, but she didn't want to have too much spotlight on her, so she kind of just took a step back. Celia said potentially Jonathan Ross, and she asked Kat straight up, "Are you a traitor?" To which she said, obviously, no, because you're not going to say, "Yeah, I'm a traitor." And she kind of looked her straight in the eye. They kind of had a little eye to eye, like they looked at each other as if like trying to work each other out. And then she went, "Yeah, I don't think you're a traitor." The next mission was the Traitors chessboard. And Alan just very quickly was like, "Let's just split equally." But obviously all 3 traitors were on one team. And Claudia was like, "Is everyone happy with the teams?" And Joe said no. Joe said, "No, I'm not happy with the teams because, you know, there's more traitors on the other side." So they mixed it all up again. And there was actually now more traitors on Joe's team. Yeah, Nick obviously had his ideology that he thought Lucy and Jonathan Ross were both traitors, and that he wasn't sure on Kate, so he knew there was more traitors on his team. So when they obviously played the last round, it was between Nick and Joe, they had a little bit of discussion between themselves, but we'll get onto that in a second. So in terms of the teams, it was Jonathan, Stephen, Kate, Lucy and Nick. So that's the team with the less traitors. It was just Jonathan. And then the other team, the team leader was Alan, with Celia, David, Kat and Joe. So obviously you had Alan and Kat, both the traitors there. The first chess piece was to choose who they thought was the weakest player. Both teams chose Kate. Obviously all the traitors already knew the answer, so that was correct. Who was most two-faced? So for Jonathan Ross's team, I think they kind of came to an agreement that they thought Celia was, you know, sometimes nice to people, and then maybe it doesn't actually like them. And then for Alan's team, Celia actually put herself forward. She said, "Yeah, I'm you know, very two-faced. Like, if I like you, I like you, and if I like you, or if I don't like you, I'll make it very obvious that I don't like you." So she was like, "Yeah, I think I'm quite two-faced." So again, both teams got a point in there, so 2-2. And then the final one was who they thought the leader of the pack was, in terms of like the wolf character. So I think both teams went for Stephen, but before the round started, Nick looked over at Joe and whispered, saying, "Look, I think you've got, I think I've got more traitors on my team, so I'm going to let you win the game." And Joe was like, "Okay, cool, go for Stephen." So yeah, Joe ended up going for Stephen. Joe's team won, and his whole team got immunity, which was 3 faithfuls and 2 of the traitors, Kat and Alan. And then for Nick's team, it basically put Nick, Lucy, Kate, and Stephen up for eviction. And obviously you had Jonathan Ross, who, you know, didn't get a shield, but, you know, he had to act as if he was still a faithful. Lucy also said here that she didn't want to throw Nick under the bus, but he should have gone for Stephen as leader of the pack, not Jonathan. So again, just picking up something that was just a bit of a strange answer for Nick to have put, but obviously didn't know the back plan of that little game plan between him and Joe. So yeah, Joe and Nick had a quick chat in billiards. So I think they both made food, and Joe just literally said to Nick, "Billiards." So they went for a quick chat. And they obviously, you know, had to work out how to keep both of their identities hidden, but they both trust each other now as faithful, which is good. Nick was having a chat saying that Lucy, Jonathan and Stephen might be traitors, and they have to ally themselves with traitors in order to win, because one traitor on their own can win, but one faithful on their own cannot win. Lucy was talking to Kate, saying potentially Stephen or Jonathan are the traitors, with Kate saying actually Stephen in that round was quite genuine. Lucy said that they were both looking like as if they didn't know the answers, yet they were obviously traitors. And Stephen said, "If you're a faithful, just know you're leaving. I know I'm going to be going if they think I'm leader of the pack." And he actually said to the camera he thinks the traitors are either Jonathan or Alan. So, you know, he's got a good instinct. He knows, but obviously he can't say that to anyone else. And then Jonathan basically said that the 2 people in the frame the most are David and Stephen, so he shouldn't get banished. David said the traitors are winning with their herd mentality. One person says something, everyone else copies. And Joe said this round table is important for the Hunties. The JR is his target, and Jonathan Ross, his time is currently up. So I'll do a part 2 to episode 6 because I didn't realise how long I was talking for. So we'll do a part 2 in a moment.